Carl Jung, the renowned Swiss psychiatrist and founder of analytical psychology, often explored the deep, unseen layers of the human soul, those places where love, wounds, and healing all reside. One of his most touching legacies is the quiet truth that those who truly care for you will never abandon you, even when your light is hidden under shadow. Jung believed in the profound connection between souls, saying, "The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed." In genuine love and friendship, transformation happens not through pressure or judgment, but through the grace of presence. When someone truly cares, they are not scared off by your complexity or struggles. They stay, not to fix you, but to walk beside you as you grow and unfold. Jung understood that authenticity, being fully seen and loved as we are, is rare, and yet it is the very foundation of true connection. The one who cares will not flinch when your shadow emerges. They will embrace it with compassion, recognizing it as part of your whole self. They will understand that healing is not linear and support is not conditional. Such a person doesn't retreat at the first sign of discomfort or difficulty. Instead, they offer steadiness in moments of chaos and quiet encouragement in times of doubt. Their love isn't loud, but it's enduring. Jung's insights teach us that enduring relationships are soul deep, rooted in mutual respect, trust, and emotional presence. So when someone remains through your seasons, stormy, soft, or still, know that theirs is a love that sees your essence, not just your surface. In a world that often rushes away, the one who truly cares will choose to stay. Dear everyone, before we continue the program, if you enjoy this topic, please comment number 1. If you'd like me to create more similar content, comment number 2. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you won't miss any useful videos. Thank you, and wish you all meaningful moments. Have you ever found yourself lying awake at night, heart heavy with the echo of a question that refuses to fade? Why do people leave when I need them most? Maybe you've known the ache of abandonment, when the ones you trusted turned away just as the weight became too much to carry alone. Or maybe you felt like a burden when your inner world became too dark, too complicated, or simply too much. If that resonates with you, you are not alone. Carl Jung, one of the most profound minds of the 20th century, spent a lifetime exploring these deep emotional truths. He believed that we all carry within us a shadow, a hidden self made of forgotten fears, unhealed pain, and untold stories. But he also believed in something more powerful, the possibility of authentic connection. The kind of bond where someone doesn't just love the version of you that smiles in the sunlight, but the version that struggles in the storm. Jung once said, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely." And yet, it is this very act of self-acceptance, often nurtured by the presence of someone who truly sees us, that allows us to heal. In Jungian thought, relationships are not just social contracts or passing connections. They are alchemical vessels for transformation. When someone truly cares, they don't run from your darkness. They sit with it. They hold space for your becoming. This video isn't just about Carl Jung's psychological theories. It's about the soul-deep truth that when love is real, it stays. It's about the quiet, enduring presence of the one who doesn't flinch when your wounds are exposed. It's about recognizing that the one who truly cares will never leave, not because you are perfect, but because they have chosen to love you as you are. So today, through the lens of Jungian philosophy and emotional wisdom, we'll journey into the heart of what it means to be truly cared for, not just in theory, but in life, in struggle, and in the sacred space between two souls. 1. The Jungian lens. Love as a vessel for transformation. When Carl Jung spoke of the human psyche, he didn't merely analyze thought patterns or behaviors. He uncovered an inner world rich with symbols, myths, and archetypes. To Jung, every person is on a journey toward wholeness, a process he called individuation. But this journey, as deeply personal as it is never traveled alone. At various points along the way, we encounter others, some who pass briefly, and some who remain. It is in these connections, Jung believed, that we often meet ourselves most fully. He famously wrote, "The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed." Think about that. Real relationships, ones rooted in emotional depth, aren't static. They change us. They reflect our strengths, challenge our illusions, and shine light on the parts of us we hide. But here's the truth Jung understood deeply. Transformation requires safety, and safety is built by the consistent, loving presence of someone who does not leave when the process gets messy. In our modern world, it's easy to confuse affection with attachment, attention with love. We are taught to value charisma, excitement, even drama in relationships. But these are often fleeting. What's rare and sacred is the soul who chooses to stay through your quiet unraveling. Jung knew that when the unconscious rises, when traumas, fears, and past wounds emerge, it is a frightening but necessary step toward growth. And in those moments, the presence of a caring other can be the difference between collapse and transformation. He spoke often of the shadow, the hidden parts of ourselves we suppress because we believe they are unlovable. But paradoxically, healing begins when we are seen, not just in our light, but in our darkness. The one who truly cares will not turn away from your shadow. They will not use your vulnerability as a weapon or treat your breakdown as an inconvenience. Instead, they will remain, offering you the mirror of compassionate understanding. This kind of connection isn't always romantic. It might be a friend, a mentor, a partner, or even a therapist. But in Jung's view, any relationship that fosters wholeness is sacred. He called it a konyanksho, an alchemical union where two individuals, through authenticity and trust, catalyze growth in one another. It's not about fixing each other. It's about holding space for the other to evolve. So what does it mean to be with someone who truly cares? It means they see your scars and do not flinch. They witness your anger, sadness, confusion, and still stay. It means they offer silence when words would hurt and speak truth when you've forgotten your own. They don't leave when you push them away in fear. Instead, they wait patiently, knowing your heart is only asking, will you still love me if I'm not okay? This is the love Jung hinted at. Not grand gestures or poetic declarations, but the slow, steady presence of someone who honors your journey. In a world where so many people are busy trying to be understood, the one who truly cares will seek to understand you. Not just what you say, but what you mean. Not just what you do, but what you feel. And through that understanding, you are gently reminded that you are not too much, too broken, or too complicated. You are human, and that is enough. When Carl Jung looked into the human soul, he saw that we all carry wounds, but he also saw the divine potential in every individual to heal, to grow, and to love. But that healing rarely happens in isolation. It happens in relationship, in connection, in the quiet moments when someone looks at you, not with judgment, but with presence, and says without words, I'm not going anywhere. 2. The shadow and the fear of abandonment. At the core of Carl Jung's psychology is a concept that has both fascinated and unsettled seekers for generations. The shadow. This isn't some abstract theory or distant symbol. It's deeply personal. The shadow is made of all the parts of ourselves that we've learned to reject, deny, or hide. It contains our fears, our insecurities, our rage, our shame, and perhaps most poignantly, it holds our fear of being left behind. Why do so many of us fear abandonment? Because, from a psychological standpoint, we often carry unhealed wounds from early relationships, especially with parents or caregivers, where love felt conditional, inconsistent, or absent altogether. Jung understood that our early experiences shape the lens through which we interpret the world. If we learned that being vulnerable meant being punished, or that asking for help made us a burden, we begin to internalize the belief that our needs push people away. So what do? We hide our pain, we bury our shadow, we wear a mask that says I'm fine, even when we're breaking inside. And yet, underneath that mask, the fear persists. What if they leave when they see the real me? This is where Jung's work becomes not just philosophical, but healing. He taught that the path to wholeness is not paved with perfection, it's paved with integration. We must face the shadow, not to be consumed by it, but to reclaim it as part of our humanity. And here's where the magic of true care comes in. We rarely feel safe enough to face the shadow alone. Jung believed that we are drawn to others who reflect our unconscious back to us. That's why relationships can feel so intense. The people we attract, especially those with whom we feel a deep bond, often trigger unresolved emotions. They activate our fears, our patterns, and our wounds. This is not a flaw in the connection. This is the work. But not everyone will stay when the shadow surfaces. Some people are only comfortable with your light. They are drawn to your strength, your smile, your success. But when the mask slips, when depression hits, or past trauma resurfaces, they quietly disappear. Or worse, they make you feel guilty for having needs, and the wound deepens. That's why the one who truly cares is so rare and so sacred. They do not run when the shadow appears. They do not shame you for crying, for breaking, for needing time to heal. Instead, they offer their presence, not to rescue you, but to remind you that you're not alone in your darkness. This is a form of love that is not performative, it is transformative. Jung understood that in order to heal the fear of abandonment, we must be given new experiences of being held, not physically, necessarily, but emotionally. Imagine what it feels like to let your pain rise to the surface and not be met with silence or discomfort. To speak your truth and be met with, "I hear you, I'm here." That is a corrective experience. That is soul medicine. There is also an important paradox in all of this. Jung taught that we must learn to hold our own shadow. We cannot depend on others to do the inner work for us. But we also cannot begin that work without first feeling safe, without first experiencing a space where we are not judged for being human. The presence of someone who cares gives us permission to be real, to let go, to begin. And so the fear of abandonment doesn't go away overnight, but it softens. With each act of consistent care, each moment where someone doesn't leave when you expect them to, a new narrative is written inside you, one that says, "I am not too much. I am worthy of love, even in my darkness." This is the power of Jung's wisdom. He never promised that relationships would be easy. In fact, he acknowledged their complexity. But he also believed that true connection is a doorway to the soul. The one who truly cares walks through that doorway with you, not because they have all the answers, but because they value the journey. They stay not out of obligation, but out of love. And love, in its truest form, does not run from the shadow, it embraces it. 3. Archetypes of love and the caregiver's role. Carl Jung's work with archetypes opens a powerful window into the way we understand and experience love. Archetypes in Jungian psychology are universal symbols and roles embedded in the collective unconscious, patterns that shape human behavior, relationships, and spiritual evolution. Among these archetypes, one stands out when we talk about care, presence, and emotional support: the caregiver. The caregiver archetype embodies selflessness, compassion, and the instinct to nurture. It is the parent who soothes a crying child, the friend who sits beside you through grief, the partner who remains steady when life turns chaotic. But more than any role or title, the true caregiver in Jung's eyes is someone who offers emotional containment, a stable and loving presence that can hold space for both your beauty and your brokenness. When we speak of someone who truly cares and never leaves, we are often describing someone embodying this archetype. Not someone who is perfect or always says the right thing, but someone who chooses love over fear. Someone who, in Jungian terms, has developed a conscious relationship with their own inner caregiver, and therefore can extend that healing presence to others. It's important to understand that archetypes are not rigid categories. They live within all of us, influencing how we relate to ourselves and to others. We all have the potential to embody the caregiver, for someone else or for ourselves. But not everyone is ready or willing to live from that space, especially when confronted with another person's emotional shadow. That's what makes the one who truly cares so extraordinary. This person doesn't flinch when you're angry. They don't minimize your sadness or offer cliches when you need real presence. They listen, they ask gentle questions. They accept that your journey is not always linear, and that healing sometimes looks like falling apart before coming back together. They hold a sacred kind of patience, not because they are saints, but because they understand that love is not about fixing, it's about being with. In Jungian terms, this is what individuation requires. The self is not built in isolation, but in relationship. When someone embodies the caregiver archetype, they act as a container, a safe, holding environment in which your psyche can unfold. They help you reclaim the lost parts of yourself, not by telling you who you should be, but by affirming who you already are beneath the pain. And interestingly, Jung also warned about the shadow side of the caregiver. Sometimes people help not out of love, but out of a need to be needed. This can turn into control, martyrdom, or emotional enmeshment. The true caregiver does not lose themselves in your pain. They honor your autonomy while offering steadfast support. They empower rather than rescue. They walk beside you, not in front of you. So how can you recognize this archetype in your life? You'll know by how you feel when you're with them. Do you feel safe to be vulnerable without fear of judgment or ridicule? Do you feel more like yourself, not less, when you're in their presence? Do they respect your emotional space while still remaining emotionally available? These are signs that you're in the presence of someone who is living from a deep well of care. And just as importantly, are you able to be that person for someone else or for yourself? Jung believed that healing always moves in both directions. When someone offers care, it activates the caregiver within you, inviting you to tend to your own wounds with the same gentleness. Over time, you learn to internalize their care as part of your inner structure. This is how love becomes lasting, not just through the other, but through the self. It's a beautiful paradox. The more someone cares for you in a healthy way, the more you learn to care for yourself. Their love becomes the foundation from which your self-love grows. And this, Jung would say, is individuation in motion, the gradual unfolding of the whole self, supported by love that does not flee in fear, but holds firm in compassion. So when someone truly cares, they do not just stick around, they strengthen you. They reflect back your worth when you forget it. They remind you of your wholeness, even when you're fractured. And in doing so, they become more than a friend, partner, or companion. They become a mirror for your soul's becoming. In a world that too often values convenience over connection and novelty over depth, the caregiver stands as a rare and radiant archetype, a beacon of what is possible when love is rooted in presence, patience, and purpose. The one who truly cares will never leave, not because they are bound to you, but because they see you, and what is seen with love is never abandoned. 4. The alchemy of presence, holding space for transformation. Carl Jung was fascinated by the ancient art of alchemy, not because he believed in turning lead into literal gold, but because he saw in alchemy a profound psychological metaphor. To him, alchemy symbolized the process of inner transformation, the slow, often painful journey of turning the raw materials of our suffering into the gold of wisdom, resilience, and self-awareness. And central to this inner alchemy is one powerful, often overlooked element: presence. Presence is more than simply being physically near someone. It is an active, intentional state of being fully with another person, emotionally, spiritually, and energetically. In Jungian terms, it is the capacity to hold space for someone else's process without trying to interrupt, change, or control it. When someone truly cares, they bring this kind of presence, and in doing so, they become an alchemical container for your transformation. You see, when a person is moving through their shadow, grieving, unraveling, facing trauma, the last thing they need is to be fixed. Often, well-meaning people rush to offer advice or solutions, not realizing that this can feel like an invalidation of what the person is going through. But the one who truly cares understands the deeper need, not to be rescued, but to be witnessed. In Jung's psychological model, transformation happens in stages. There is the nigredo, the dark night, where old patterns dissolve. There is the albedo, the washing away, a time of clarity and reflection. And finally, the rubedo, the red stage, when new life begins to emerge. All of this takes time. All of it is sacred, and none of it can be rushed. What a person needs most during this process is someone who can sit with them through the darkness without trying to force the light. This is the alchemy of presence. It's when a friend doesn't rush you through your sadness but says, "I'll sit here with you for as long as you need." It's when a partner sees your anger and doesn't recoil but gently asks, "What's underneath this?" It's when someone recognizes your silence not as distance, but as a request for understanding. In moments like these, the simple act of being with becomes a balm to the soul. To hold space for another person is to become a vessel, strong enough to contain pain, soft enough to allow healing. It requires deep emotional maturity and often a confrontation with your own discomfort. After all, when we hold space for another, we're also confronted with our own impatience, our own fears, our own unhealed wounds. That's why true presence is so rare. It asks us to step out of ego and into empathy. Jung believed that transformation occurs not in isolation, but in the crucible of relationship. He wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." And sometimes we need someone else's presence, consistent, non-judgmental, unwavering, to begin that becoming. This is especially true in a culture that often equates emotional difficulty with weakness. We are told to be strong, to bounce back, to smile through it. But the one who truly cares allows you to take off the mask. They do not need you to be okay all the time. They do not require you to be useful or entertaining or emotionally convenient. They allow you to simply be, even when that means being messy, raw, or undone. And here's the hidden gift. When you are allowed to be your full self in the presence of another, you begin to internalize that permission. Slowly, gently, you start to hold space for yourself. Their care becomes the blueprint for your own self-love. Their presence teaches you that you are worthy even when you are hurting. This is the true alchemy Jung spoke of, not a quick fix or a spiritual bypass, but a slow, sacred process of turning pain into wisdom. And it begins not with grand gestures, but with quiet presence, with someone staying when others would have walked away, with someone saying, "I see you, I honor you, I'm not leaving." In the end, this is what makes care so powerful. Not that it changes your circumstances, but that it changes you. The person who holds space for your becoming, who stays through the negredo, the shadow, the sorrow, is not just a companion. They are an alchemist, a soul midwife, a sacred witness to your transformation. And perhaps Jung would suggest the greatest miracle is this. Through their presence, you begin to believe in your own light again. 5. The myth of independence. Why we need others to heal. In today's culture, independence is often glorified. We're told to be strong, self-reliant, unshakable. Needing others is sometimes seen as a weakness, and vulnerability can be misunderstood as instability. But Carl Jung would offer a very different view, one rooted in deep psychological and spiritual truth. Jung understood that wholeness does not mean self-sufficiency and isolation. Rather, wholeness is the integration of all parts of the self, and much of that integration happens in relationship. We are social, emotional beings by nature, and our inner worlds are shaped not just by our thoughts and choices, but by the connections we make with others. The myth of complete independence denies one of the most basic human truths. We are meant to heal together. From birth, we rely on connection to survive. A newborn needs not just food and shelter, but eye contact, touch, soothing voices. These early experiences lay the foundation for our sense of safety, trust, and emotional worth. When these needs are unmet or inconsistently met, we develop adaptations, walls, defenses, masks to survive the pain of disconnection. But those adaptations come at a cost. We begin to believe that we are only lovable when we're strong, only safe when we're alone. Jung's work invites us to challenge this belief. He wrote, "Loneliness does not come from having no people around you, but from being unable to communicate the things that seem important to you." In other words, we don't heal from being alone. We heal from being seen, truly, deeply, without condition. That's why the presence of someone who genuinely cares is so transformative. They help rewrite those old scripts, the ones that say, "I must carry this alone," or "If I show my true self, I will be left." When someone stays, not out of obligation, but out of love, we begin to question the story that says we are only safe in solitude. We realize that real strength is not isolation, but intimacy. In Jungian terms, this is part of the individuation process. Becoming whole does not mean becoming detached. It means integrating both the desire for autonomy and the deep human need for connection. When these two impulses are in balance, we learn how to be with others without losing ourselves, and how to be with ourselves without closing off from the world. But what happens when someone truly stays? When they don't disappear at the first sign of difficulty? We begin to soften. We begin to trust. We begin to let the protective armor fall away, piece by piece. And in its place, we discover a different kind of strength, a strength rooted in openness, in vulnerability, in love. The myth of independence says, don't rely on anyone. But Jung's wisdom tells us that healing requires relationship, not codependency, but conscious connection. The kind of bond where each person is free to be themselves fully, and where both are committed to growth, truth, and care. This is not a weakness. It is an act of courage. And here's the truth that can be hard to accept. We cannot fully see ourselves without the mirror of another. Our blind spots, our projections, our wounds. All of these become more visible when reflected through the eyes of someone who truly sees us. This is why Jung valued depth relationships so highly. They are the crucible in which our unconscious becomes conscious, and our hidden parts are brought into light. This is why the one who truly cares is not just a comfort, they are a catalyst. Their love is not a crutch, it's a mirror, a balm, a doorway. They help you rewire the belief that you must face everything alone. They offer a sacred alternative. You don't have to be perfect to be loved. You just have to be real. In their presence, you begin to understand what Jung meant when he said, "We are not what happened to us. We are what we choose to become." And often, we make that choice because someone cared enough to walk beside us as we made it. So yes, independence has its place. We must learn to know ourselves, to care for ourselves, to stand in our own truth. But let us never mistake that for a life without love. Let us never forget that the deepest healing often begins with the words, "I'm here, I'm not leaving." And in that sacred moment, independence and intimacy are no longer opposites. They are partners in your becoming. 6. When they leave. Grief, integration, and the lessons of departure. As much as we long for people who stay, life is full of moments when they don't. Even those who care deeply, perhaps even truly, may leave. They might walk away out of fear, exhaustion, timing, or inner wounds of their own. Sometimes it's by choice, sometimes by circumstance, sometimes by death. And when they do, we are left with a question that echoes through the heart. What now? Carl Jung never promised that relationships would last forever. In fact, his work makes it clear that many connections, though meaningful, are temporary. But he also believed that no encounter is without purpose. Every relationship, especially the ones that touch us most deeply, is a teacher, even when it ends, maybe especially when it ends. In Jungian psychology, endings are not failures, they are transitions. A departure can mark the close of a psychological cycle, a turning point that forces us to look inward and reclaim something we once depended on another to hold. When someone leaves, it often stirs grief. But grief, Jung would say, is not just sorrow. It is transformation in motion. To grieve consciously is to allow yourself to feel the full weight of what was lost, while also listening for what remains. You may ask, how could someone who truly cared still leave me? The answer is not simple. Sometimes people love you deeply, but lack the capacity to stay. Sometimes they are called to their own path of individuation, which requires distance. And sometimes they are reflections of your own unconscious, meant to awaken you to something inside yourself, then pass on like a dream fading in morning light. Jung viewed life as a great unfolding, a mysterious, symbolic dance of meetings and partings, integration and release. And when someone leaves, it may not mean they didn't care. It may simply mean their role in your story has reached its natural close. Still, the pain of departure is real. The silence left behind can feel deafening. The places they once filled, your days, your thoughts, your dreams, can echo with a kind of spiritual emptiness. And yet, within that emptiness lies something sacred, space for integration. You see, when someone truly cares for you, even if their time with you is short, they leave an imprint. Their love becomes a seed planted in the soil of your soul, and your task in their absence is to water it, to carry forward the care they once gave you, and offer it now to yourself. This is where grief becomes alchemy. Instead of trying to erase the past or close your heart, Jung would encourage you to turn inward, to ask, what did this relationship awaken in me? What part of myself did they help me see, love, or reclaim? What pain still lingers, and what is it asking for now? These questions are not meant to rush your healing. They are invitations to move from pain to meaning. Because when someone truly cares, even if they leave, their presence changes you. And that change does not leave when they do. Jung wrote, the greatest and most important problems of life are all fundamentally insolvable. They can never be solved, but only outgrown. The ache of absence is not something you fix. It's something you grow around. You integrate it into the architecture of your becoming. You allow it to shape you, but not harden you, to deepen you, not destroy you. Sometimes the person who leaves ends up guiding your next stage of growth more powerfully than they could have while still by your side. Their absence becomes a teacher, their silence becomes a mirror, and slowly you begin to realize they are not gone, not completely. They live in how you speak to yourself when you're hurting. They live in the way you offer care to others, even on the days you feel empty. They live in the strength you find when you thought you had none left. And in that way, they stay. So if you're carrying the weight of someone's absence, know this. Grief is not the end of love. It is its evolution. What was once external must now be found within. And while that may hurt more than words can say, it also holds a quiet promise that the love you once received, you now carry in your own hands. You are not left with nothing. You are left with a part of them that helped shape who you are becoming. The one who truly cares may leave your life, but they never leave your soul. They remain in the way you choose to keep growing, even when it hurts. 7. Becoming the one who stays, embodying Jungian love in our lives. Throughout this journey, we've explored what it means to be loved by someone who truly cares, someone who stays, who listens, who holds space without judgment. But Carl Jung's deepest teachings remind us that true transformation isn't only about receiving love, it's about becoming love. So now the question turns inward. Can you be the one who stays? This is not a question of martyrdom or self-sacrifice. It's not about being endlessly available to those who harm you or giving beyond your boundaries. Rather, it's about becoming a stable, compassionate presence in a world where so many are running from their own pain. To embody Jungian love is to cultivate the capacity to sit with discomfort, yours and others, and respond not with fear, but with curiosity and care. Jung believed that real love is a process of individuation shared between two souls. He wrote, "Where love rules, there is no will to power, and where power predominates, there love is lacking." In a culture driven by performance, control, and ego, love becomes revolutionary when it flows from presence, humility, and patience. To become the one who stays means developing the emotional maturity to honor someone's process, even when you don't understand it. It means resisting the urge to fix, to lecture, or to abandon when someone's shadow begins to surface. It means holding space for their unfolding with the same reverence you hope they'll offer you. But here's the truth. You cannot hold that kind of space for others until you learn to hold it for yourself. This is where the inner work begins. When you feel sad, can you stay instead of numbing out? When anger arises, can you sit with it instead of lashing out or turning away? When shame creeps in, can you offer yourself compassion instead of criticism? To become the one who truly cares, who stays, you must first become a sanctuary for your own inner life. This doesn't mean becoming perfect. It means becoming honest. It means making room for your full humanity and meeting it with tenderness rather than judgment. This is what Jung meant when he spoke of integrating the shadow, not eliminating it, but bringing it into the light of consciousness. When you meet your own shadow with love, you become more capable of offering that same love to others. You no longer need people to be easy or happy all the time in order to be worthy of your presence. You understand the value of staying because you've stayed with yourself through your own storms. This kind of love is quiet, grounded, enduring. It does not always look romantic. Sometimes it's a friend who checks in. Sometimes it's a partner who listens without defensiveness. Sometimes it's a stranger who offers kindness with no expectation in return. And sometimes it's you, choosing not to abandon yourself today, even when the voice of self-doubt is loud. Jung's teachings call us into this deeper responsibility, not just to heal, but to become healers in our own right. Not by diagnosing or prescribing, but by offering presence. By becoming the kind of person who, when someone is falling apart, can sit calmly beside them and whisper, "I'm here, I see you, you're not alone." That is a rare kind of power, and it is cultivated over time. It grows each time you choose empathy over avoidance. Each time you remain kind when it would be easier to retreat. Each time you choose to stay, not because you have to, but because love is something you are becoming. This is the evolution of care. Not needing others to stay, but learning how to become the one who stays. And in doing so, you transform every relationship you touch because your love is no longer reactive or conditional. It becomes a source of strength and stability, a soft place for others to land, a quiet force that says, even in your worst moment, you are worthy of being seen. Jung once said, "Know all the theories, master all the techniques, but as you touch a human soul, be just another human soul. So be that soul. Be the one who truly cares, not just in thought, but in presence. Not just when it's easy, but when it's hard. Not because you are flawless, but because you have chosen the sacred path of becoming love itself." 8. Full circle. Love, wholeness, and the legacy of Jung. We've traveled through the landscapes of the soul together, through the tenderness of care, the pain of abandonment, the mystery of transformation, and the sacred role of presence. And now we return to the heart of it all. Carl Jung's enduring belief that wholeness is not found in isolation, but in love. Jung never promised that the path to wholeness would be easy. He knew it was steep, winding, and often shadowed. But he also knew that the soul does not grow in sterile perfection. It grows in the soil of our wounds. It blossoms through the relationships that challenge us, comfort us, reflect us, and sometimes break us open. And always, always, at the center of this journey is love. Not the fleeting kind, not the romantic ideal, but love that is rooted in truth. Love that stays when it's hard. Love that walks with you through the darkest forests of your psyche and says, "I won't leave you here." This is the kind of love Jung believed in, the kind that transforms, the kind that reveals not only who we are, but who we are capable of becoming. And perhaps most importantly, the kind of love that we can learn to give ourselves and others in return. When someone truly cares and does not leave, it is not just comforting, it is healing. Their presence rewrites the script of abandonment. It tells a new story, one where you are worthy, seen, held. And that story becomes a foundation upon which you can build your own strength. Their love becomes an inner companion, even if they are no longer physically present. But what if you never had that kind of person? What if no one stayed? Then Jung's invitation is this: become the one you always needed, not out of bitterness, not out of loneliness, but as an act of sacred reclamation. You can be the one who offers gentleness instead of shame. You can be the one who holds space instead of shutting down. You can be the one who says to your inner child, "I see you, I hear you, I will not leave you again." And through this, you fulfill one of the deepest callings of Jungian work, the journey toward the self. The self is not a mask or a role, it is the fully integrated soul. The part of you that holds your light and your shadow, your fear and your courage, your pain and your power. It is who you were before the world told you to become someone else, and it is who you are still becoming. When love is present, the self is invited to emerge. When someone stays, you are reminded your truth is not too much, your needs are not a burden, your story is worth being heard. And when you learn to stay with yourself and with others, you become a vessel of this sacred love, a quiet revolutionary in a world that often chooses escape. Carl Jung's legacy is not a prescription, it is a mirror. He did not offer easy answers. He offered questions that cracked open the soul. And in the space that followed, he invited us into a deeper, more honest love, one that does not flee from fear or shadow, but holds it with reverence. So now, as this journey comes full circle, ask yourself, have I known the love that stays? Have I been the love that stays? And if not, what might it mean to begin? Because the one who truly cares does not need to fix you. They simply stay. They hold a light as you descend into yourself. And when you rise, even if trembling, they are still there, not to carry you, but to walk with you, not to make you whole, but to remind you that you already are. This is Jungian love. This is the alchemy of presence. This is the path of those who truly care. And in a world that forgets too easily, may you be one who remembers. May you stay. May you become love. Have you ever wondered why some people walk away when you need them most, while others stay and hold space for your deepest wounds? In a world where love often feels conditional and fleeting, what does it really mean to be truly cared for? Not just when you shine, but when you break. Carl Jung, one of the most profound thinkers of the modern age, believed that relationships are sacred vessels for transformation. That the people who choose to stay when it's uncomfortable are not just companions, but catalysts for healing. In this video, we'll explore the heart of Jungian wisdom and the soul-level truth that the one who truly cares will never leave you. Let's journey into the psychology of presence, the alchemy of love, and what it means to become the one who stays, not just for others, but for yourself. This is galactic wisdom. Thank you for walking with us through this deeply human journey. If this video resonated with something inside you, if it reminded you of a person who stayed or helped you realize that you are becoming that person, then this message has already done its sacred work. Carl Jung taught us that the path to wholeness isn't traveled alone. It is lit by the quiet presence of those who dare to love us as we are, not as we pretend to be. And sometimes, that presence is the gift we give ourselves. So, if you found meaning here, if your heart felt seen, please support the Galactic Wisdom channel by liking this video, subscribing for more soul-centered content, sharing it with someone who may need to hear these words today, and letting us know in the comments, have you ever experienced a love that stayed? Or are you learning to stay for yourself? Your voice matters here. Every view, every comment, every connection helps us build a global circle of seekers, thinkers, and healers. People who leave like Jung did, that the soul is worth listening to. So until next time, journey deep, love honestly, and always walk gently. This is Galactic Wisdom. We'll see you in the next transmission.